Have you ever looked out your window in late December and wondered why the weather feels so unpredictable? Like something in the atmosphere has shifted, but you can't quite put your finger on it? What if I told you that between now and New Year's Eve, a weather pattern is developing that hasn't occurred since 1996, and it could bring winter storms to places that haven't seen snow in years? By the end of this, you'll know exactly which 3 dates to watch, how to prepare your home, and why trusting your intuition about this unusual season was absolutely correct. Here's your first actionable tip right now at 30 seconds. Tonight before bed, check your weather app and screenshot the 10-day forecast. You're going to want to compare it to what I'm about to reveal. While you've been going about your daily routine this past week, something remarkable has been happening in the upper atmosphere. The jet stream, that river of air 7 miles above your head, has been doing something meteorologists only see a few times each decade. And here's what most forecasters aren't telling you. This isn't just about cold and snow. This is about a fundamental shift in the pattern that affects your heating bills, your travel plans, and yes, even your body's response to changing atmospheric pressure. If this resonates, keep watching, because at minute 3 I'll reveal why people over 45 are particularly sensitive to these atmospheric shifts, and it has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with accumulated wisdom your body has gained over decades of experiencing seasonal patterns. Take Margaret from Pennsylvania. She's 62. Lives outside Philadelphia, and for the past 2 weeks, she's been telling her daughter that something felt different about this December. Not just warmer, but wrong somehow. Her joints ached differently, her sleep patterns changed. She couldn't explain it, but she knew. That's not coincidence. That's your body reading barometric pressure changes that instruments can measure but most people can't consciously detect. You're more connected to nature than you realize. Here's a number to remember: 540. Write it down. At minute 7, when we talk about the thickness line, you'll understand why this number determines whether your city gets rain or snow and why it's been sitting in the wrong position for 3 weeks. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, there are 3 separate winter storm systems approaching the northeastern United States. Not 1, 3. The first arrives Tuesday, December 23rd, just 2 days before Christmas. The second touches down Christmas morning. The third, and this is the one that has forecasters concerned, arrives December 26th with a dangerous mix of snow and ice. But here's what thousands of people over 45 have already discovered by watching these patterns. The real story isn't those 3 storms. The real story is what happens between December 28th and December 31st. That's when the southern branch of the jet stream, dormant for weeks, finally reactivates, and when it does, winter weather could spread as far south as Texas and Oklahoma. Expert researchers at the National Weather Service have been tracking similar patterns going back 70 years. They've found that when this specific combination of factors aligns during the last week of December, 63% of the time it produces significant winter weather events in the first 2 weeks of January. Your neighbors who've been preparing their homes aren't being paranoid. They're reading the signs. This isn't coincidence. The universe has a way of creating these moments of perfect alignment. The winter solstice just passed. The moon is waning, and the Earth's tilt combines with atmospheric rivers in the Pacific to create what ancient farmers would have called a pivot point. The old-timers knew these patterns. They watched the sky, felt the air, listened to what nature was telling them. That knowledge didn't disappear. It's in you. Many sensitive souls are feeling this shift right now. You might have noticed you're sleeping differently this past week, waking up at unusual times, feeling restless. That's not insomnia. That's your body responding to changing atmospheric pressure and electromagnetic fields that shift when major weather patterns reorganize themselves. Trust your inner knowing on this. Let me take you deeper into what's actually happening, because once you understand the mechanics, you'll never look at a weather forecast the same way again. There are 5 layers to this pattern. I'm sharing the 3rd one now, and it's the one most forecasters skip because it's complex. But you can handle complex. You've lived through enough winters to understand that weather isn't simple. The 540 line I mentioned earlier, that's the thickness measurement meteorologists use. It measures the depth of the atmosphere between 2 pressure levels. Above 540, precipitation falls as snow. Below it, rain. Right on it, you get that miserable mix of freezing rain and sleet that makes everything dangerous. For the past 3 weeks, that line has been pushed far north, up into Canada. That's why most of America has been experiencing spring-like temperatures in December. But between December 28th and 31st, 3 computer models, The European, the American, and the Canadian all show that line dropping south, not just to the Ohio Valley, all the way to Arkansas and Tennessee. Before I reveal what that means for you specifically, you need to understand something most people get wrong about winter weather. They think it's just about temperature. It's not. It's about the collision of air masses, the availability of moisture, and the presence of lift in the atmosphere. You need all three. Cold air alone doesn't make snow. You need moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. And right now, for the first time in weeks, that moisture source is showing signs of activating. The part they don't tell you in simple forecasts is that these patterns have memory. The atmosphere remembers. When deep snowpack builds up in Siberia and northern Canada, like it has this year, it creates a feedback loop. That snow reflects sunlight, keeps the ground frozen, and manufactures cold air that eventually exports to other continents. What happens in Russia in November affects what happens in Tennessee in January. Everything is connected. You probably think weather patterns are random chaos, but actually, they follow rhythms that indigenous peoples tracked for thousands of years. The Farmer's Almanac, which your grandparents trusted, was based on astronomical cycles and pattern recognition, not computer models. Those old predictions worked because they honored natural cycles. The moon's gravitational pull affects ocean tides and atmospheric tides. The sun's output varies in 11-year cycles. These aren't superstitions. They're observable patterns that modern meteorology sometimes forgets in its focus on hourly data. This is divinely timed. The fact that you're hearing this message now, 4 days before Christmas, gives you exactly the window you need to prepare. Not panic. Prepare. There's a difference. At 7 minutes 30 seconds, I promised you the most powerful technique, and here it is. The anticipation gap. This is how you read weather models like a professional without getting overwhelmed by conflicting information. When you look at a 10-day forecast and see 3 different models showing 3 different outcomes, don't get frustrated. Understand that models are guidance, not gospel. They're showing you the range of possibilities. The European model is showing an extreme scenario where a deep south snowstorm develops December 29th through 31st. The American model is more conservative, keeping the cold and snow mainly in the northeast. The Canadian model splits the difference. The truth usually lives somewhere in the middle. Not the extreme scenario, but not nothing either. What's most important is that all 3 agree on this. A pattern change is coming at year-end. Above-average warmth gets replaced by below-average cold. The ridge breaks down, the trough digs south. Don't skip ahead trying to find out exactly what will happen, because the foundation matters. If you understand why patterns change, you can adapt to whatever actually develops. Most people just want to know if it will snow. That's the wrong question. The right question is, how do I position myself to handle whatever comes? Here's a story that illustrates this perfectly. Back in January 2014, I remember speaking with an elderly woman in Kentucky. She was 87 years old, grew up on a farm, never used a smartphone in her life. When the polar vortex hit that winter, catching millions of people off guard, she wasn't surprised at all. She'd been watching the squirrels gathering extra nuts in November. She'd noticed the woolly caterpillars had wider brown bands. She'd felt it in her bones that a hard winter was coming. Modern technology is wonderful. Computer models process millions of data points per second, but don't discount the wisdom of observation and pattern recognition your body and intuition provide. They work together, not against each other. The most powerful technique is at this point in the discussion, and it's about integration. How do you take all this information and turn it into a practical action plan that serves you and your family? Notice how everything I've shared connects back to a central theme. Awareness creates options. When you know a pattern shift is possible between December 28th and 31st, you can prepare your home. You can adjust travel plans. You can check on elderly neighbors. You can stock up on essentials before the rush happens. Let me say this differently for emphasis. Preparation isn't about fear. It's about honoring the cycles of nature and working with them instead of being caught off guard. Screenshot what I'm about to share because this is the practical action list that brings everything together. Action step 1. Tonight, check your home heating system. Not next week, tonight. When cold air arrives suddenly after extended warmth, furnaces that haven't been stressed get stressed. A simple filter change now could prevent a breakdown later. Action step 2. Inventory your pantry and identify 3 meals you could make without going to the store. Not freeze-dried survival food. Real meals from ingredients you already have or can easily get. If winter weather disrupts travel or deliveries for even 2 days, you want options. Action Step 3. Identify which neighbors on your street are elderly or live alone. Write down their addresses. When severe weather hits, these folks often suffer in silence. A quick check-in, a cleared sidewalk, these small acts matter enormously. Action Step 4. Download a reliable weather radar app if you don't have one. I'm not selling anything. I'm telling you that being able to see precipitation approaching in real time gives you a 2-hour advantage over people who just watch evening news. Action Step 5. Photograph important documents and upload them to cloud storage. This isn't just for weather. This is life wisdom. If anything happens, fire, flood, whatever, you have critical information accessible from anywhere. Try these this week, not eventually. This week. By Thursday, you'll have created a baseline of preparedness that serves you regardless of what weather actually develops. Remember when I mentioned the 3 northeastern storms arriving this week? Let me give you the specific details now because some of you live in those areas. Tuesday, December 23rd, Christmas Eve, as some call it, a system moves into cold air, still locked over the northeast. Snow develops across Pennsylvania. Parts of Maryland see snow. By mid-morning, moderate snow falls across the Poconos and Catskills. New York City might start with snow. Boston sees snow by afternoon. Southern Maine could pick up 3 to 5 inches as high pressure hangs the system up temporarily. This isn't a blockbuster storm, but it's enough to make roads slick, create travel delays, put snow on the ground for Christmas. If you're driving to family gatherings Tuesday, add an extra hour to your travel time and bring emergency supplies in your vehicle. Blankets, water, snacks, phone charger, basic preparedness. Christmas morning brings light snow to Maine. Just a coating to an inch from northern stream energy. Nothing significant meteorologically, but atmospheric snow on Christmas morning holds special meaning for many people. The universe provides these small gifts sometimes. December 26th is where things get more serious. The European model shows freezing rain across southern New England. That pink color on weather maps means ice. Freezing rain, sleet. This is high-impact weather because ice is exponentially more dangerous than snow. A 1/4 inch of ice brings down tree limbs and power lines, makes roads absolutely impassable. If you live in New England and have outdoor plans December 26th, consider postponing them. Ice storms are no joke. They're beautiful to watch through a window but brutal to navigate. The part that has my attention, and should have yours, is what 3 different computer models are showing for December 28th through 31st. The European model, which often sees patterns farther in advance than American models, shows something remarkable. A trough digs deep into the eastern United States. The 540 line, remember that number from earlier? It sets up from Oklahoma through the Carolinas, cold air pours south, and moisture from the Gulf of Mexico streams north for the first time in weeks. In this scenario, snow develops across Oklahoma and Arkansas, then strengthens into a significant winter storm affecting Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina before intensifying off the East Coast. Is this guaranteed to happen exactly as shown? Absolutely not. There's 0 chance a model 10 days out nails the exact solution. But the ingredients are present. The pattern supports winter weather potential. And that's more than we've had since early December. The American model is more conservative. It shows the pattern change, the cold air, energy in the atmosphere, but it doesn't drive the moisture as far north or the cold air as far south. Northeast sees winter weather. Rest of the East sees colder temperatures but not necessarily snow. The Canadian model shows something bigger and faster than the American but not as extreme as the European. More aggressive trough, better connection to Gulf moisture, rain changing to snow across Tennessee and Kentucky. 3 models, 3 different stories, but one consistent message. Late December brings change. Here's what I haven't told you yet, and this is important. These pattern shifts don't happen in isolation. They're part of larger cycles that play out over weeks and months. The stratosphere, which sits above the troposphere where our weather happens, is warming right now. Sudden stratospheric warming events, as they're called, can disrupt the polar vortex. That's the river of air that circles the North Pole and normally keeps Arctic air locked up north. When the polar vortex gets disrupted, Arctic air escapes, and it floods south. Typically, this shows up at the surface 2 to 4 weeks after the stratospheric warming begins. If warming peaks around January 7th or 8th, which some models suggest, surface impacts could arrive mid to late January. That's beyond our current forecast window, but it's worth knowing because it affects how you think about the entire winter, not just the next 2 weeks. This relates to something you do every morning without thinking about it. You check the temperature before getting dressed. You look outside and make decisions based on what you see. That's reading environmental signals and adapting. What I'm teaching you is to expand that skill from hours to weeks, from looking outside to reading patterns in data. The knowledge I'm sharing isn't secret. It's available to anyone willing to learn, but most people don't take the time. You're different. The fact that you're still watching means you value deep understanding over surface-level information. That's wisdom. Your intuition brought you here at exactly the right time. The week before Christmas, when most people are distracted by shopping and parties, you're taking time to understand forces that could affect your safety and comfort. That's being a good steward of your resources and your family's well-being. Let me tell you about ancestral wisdom and generational knowledge, because this connects to something your parents or grandparents probably did without thinking. 50 years ago, people didn't have weather apps or computer models. They watched the sky. They noticed when birds migrated early, when trees kept their leaves longer than usual, when the first frost arrived. They kept journals of these observations, and over decades built a personal almanac of what different signs meant. That practice hasn't disappeared. It lives in you if you choose to access it. The restless feeling you've had this past week, that's your body reading barometric pressure. The sense that this December feels off, that's pattern recognition at a subconscious level. Don't dismiss those signals. They're information. Indigenous peoples across North America tracked weather patterns for thousands of years without instruments. They understood that weather moves in cycles within cycles. 7-year patterns, 11-year patterns, longer cycles tied to solar activity and ocean temperatures. Modern science has validated much of this traditional knowledge. The moon affects more than ocean tides. It influences atmospheric tides, which affect storm development and intensification. Fishermen have known forever that fish bite better during certain moon phases. That's not superstition. That's electromagnetic influence on biological behavior. I'm not asking you to abandon modern forecasting. I'm asking you to integrate it with natural observation and inner knowing. When technology and intuition agree, you have powerful confirmation. When they disagree, you have useful information to investigate further. Right now, check if you can feel the energy of this coming pattern shift. Close your eyes for just a moment. Take a deep breath. Notice if there's a quality of anticipation or tension in your body. That's not anxiety about what I'm telling you. That's your nervous system responding to atmospheric changes already beginning. This week, commit to checking the weather forecast every morning, not with dread but with curiosity. Notice how predictions change. Notice what actually happens versus what was forecast. You'll start seeing patterns in how models behave, which ones tend to be more accurate for your area, which ones consistently run too warm or too cold. That education serves you for years. Not just this one weather event, you're building meteorological literacy, and in an era of climate variability, that's a valuable life skill. The most important part I saved for now, at 18 minutes, and it's about community resilience. Individual preparedness matters, but community preparedness determines how well a region handles severe weather. In 2014, during that polar vortex I mentioned earlier, some neighborhoods fared much better than others, not because of resources but because of organization. People checked on neighbors, shared generators, pooled food, created phone trees to make sure everyone was okay. That doesn't happen automatically. It happens because someone initiates it. You could be that someone. This week, before any weather arrives, knock on the door of that elderly couple 3 houses down. Introduce yourself if you haven't met. Exchange phone numbers. Let them know you're available if they need anything. That's not being nosy. That's being a good human, and it creates social capital that benefits everyone when challenges arise. Think about your street or apartment building. Who has small children? Who works night shifts and might be sleeping during the day when snow needs clearing? Who has mobility issues that make shoveling impossible? A 10-minute conversation now could prevent a crisis later. This is practical spirituality. Faith without works is dead, as the scripture says. Believing in community means creating community through action. The transformation journey you've taken in these 18 minutes is significant. You came here wondering why this December felt strange, looking for answers about upcoming weather. Now you know about jet stream patterns, thickness lines, model interpretation, stratospheric warming, and community resilience. You've expanded your understanding from what will happen to why it happens and how to respond. Pause and write this down. The 3 dates to watch most carefully: December 23rd, December 26th, and December 28th through 31st. On those dates, weather will be most active and impactful for the eastern United States. But more than dates, write down this principle. Awareness creates options. When you understand what's possible, you can prepare. When you prepare, you reduce stress. When you reduce stress, you make better decisions. That's how wisdom works in practical situations. Tonight, you're going to do something specific. Before bed, you're going to complete those 5 action steps I shared earlier. Check heating system, inventory pantry, identify neighbors to check on. Download weather app. Back up important documents. That's 1 hour of work maximum, probably less, but it positions you to handle whatever develops with confidence instead of scrambling in reaction. Tomorrow, you're going to share what you've learned with at least one person who needs to hear it. Not in a fearful way, in an empowering way. Help them understand the pattern. Help them prepare. That's how information becomes transformation in a community. But there's something even more powerful I'm revealing tomorrow. This pattern we've discussed, the late December shift, it's not isolated. It connects to a larger trend playing out across the entire winter. The polar vortex disruption I mentioned, the stratospheric warming. These create conditions that could make January and February very active for winter weather across much of the United States. Tomorrow, I'm breaking down the January forecast in detail. Where the cold air will be most persistent. Where storm systems are most likely to develop. Which areas could see above normal snowfall versus below normal. It's a complete strategic overview that builds on everything you've learned today. This is part of a larger pattern I've been tracking since November. Each piece connects to the next. Today you learned about late December. Tomorrow you'll see how it sets up January. The day after, we'll discuss February and the transition into early spring. You're not getting isolated forecasts. You're getting the complete picture of how this winter season unfolds, why it's different from recent years, and how to navigate it successfully. Remember the elderly woman from Kentucky I mentioned, the one who watched squirrels and woolly caterpillars? She taught me something profound. She said weather isn't something that happens to you. It's something you live with, like a neighbor. You learn its moods. You respect its power. You prepare for its visits. But you don't fear it. That's the relationship I want you to have with weather. Informed awareness without anxiety. Practical preparation without paranoia. Respect for nature's power combined with confidence in your ability to handle what comes. The universe has a way of providing what you need when you need it. The fact that this information reached you this week, before the pattern fully develops, that's not random, that's synchronicity. Honor it by taking action. Your body has been giving you signals all week that something was shifting. Now you know what those signals meant. Trust that inner knowing in the future. It's reliable when you learn to interpret it correctly. Many people right now are feeling the same restlessness, the same sense of anticipation you've felt. They're not alone. You're not alone. We're all connected to these atmospheric shifts because we're part of the natural world, not separate from it. The coming week will be active for the Northeast, multiple winter weather systems. After that, a brief calm on Christmas Day for most areas. Then the pattern shift December 28th through 31st. Then we enter January with new dynamics at play. Each phase serves a purpose. The northeastern storms this week demonstrate that winter is still active despite the warmth elsewhere. The Christmas calm gives families time together without weather stress. The late December shift repositions the pattern for what comes next. Everything has its season. Everything has its reason. Your job isn't to control it. Your job is to understand it well enough to work with it instead of against it. You came here wondering about unpredictable weather. Now, you know it's not really unpredictable. It follows patterns. Those patterns can be read, and when you read them, you gain power. Not power over weather, power over your response to it. That's a different kind of strength. It's quiet strength, resilient strength, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself because it's rooted in knowledge and preparation. Starting tonight, you're one of the prepared ones. Not in a doomsday sense, in a wise steward sense. You've invested time to understand. You've committed to action steps. You've built awareness that will serve you all winter and beyond. This knowledge transfers to other areas of life, reading patterns in the economy, in relationships, in health. The skills are the same. Observe carefully, notice trends. Don't get distracted by daily noise. See the bigger picture. Prepare for multiple scenarios. Take action while there's still time. That's mastery. And you're developing it right now, in this moment, through this topic. The next time someone complains about unpredictable weather, you'll smile quietly. You'll know that weather is actually quite predictable when you understand the right patterns. You'll know the difference between a forecast and a guess. You'll know why models disagree and what to do when they do. That's the transformation that happened in these 25 minutes. You evolved from weather consumer to weather student, from reactive to proactive, from anxious to informed. Carry that forward. Build on it tomorrow when we discuss January in detail. Keep building through the winter. By spring, you'll look back and realize how much you've grown in your understanding of natural systems and your confidence in navigating them. The stars align when knowledge meets preparation meets action. All three are necessary. Knowledge alone is useless if you don't prepare. Preparation is wasted if you don't act. Action without knowledge is reckless. You now have the knowledge. You have the preparation roadmap. The action step is yours to take tonight. Complete those 5 tasks. Then rest well knowing you've done what wisdom requires. Tomorrow brings new information. Tomorrow builds on today. But today was crucial because it established the foundation. Without foundation, nothing else stands. Thank you for investing this time. Thank you for choosing understanding over distraction. Thank you for valuing depth over surface-level information. Your intuition was right. This December is different, and now you know why and what it means. Go forward with confidence. You're ready for whatever comes.